going to get started. My name is Cindy Eichner. You are here on the first day of class, freshman level 101, first day on campus, and we're going to talk about planning. While the title says Hyperion planning, PBCS, EPBCS, you're going to hear me say planning all the time. It's really all the same thing. I got 2 slides for you about Finite Solutions. We are an independently owned company. We're a little different than a lot of the other implementation partners because we are independently owned. We don't have to worry about our investors telling us what to do. We also have a very different compensation model than many of our peers and our competitors in that our consultants are compensated based on the client satisfaction surveys that we get from our clients. They are not compensated based on their billable hours because we find that compensating them for billable hours is not in the best interest for our clients. We work with a lot of different companies, from small not-for-profits all the way up to the Fortune 50. This is just a few of our clients. I'm sure you're going to recognize a lot of these names. That's all I'm going to tell you about Finite. So, I am Cindy Eichner. I am the director of the Planning S-Based practice at Finite Solutions. I've been delivering systems for, I'm dating myself, over 35 years. I've been working with the Hyperion suite of products for over 20. I started with S-Base when it was still owned by Arbor, before Hyperion bought it, before Oracle bought it. I am certified in S-Base, in planning, HFM, DRM, and I dabble a lot in FDM and FDM-EE. So, today, first day of class, what's our syllabus? Well, we're going to talk about what is it? What is planning? Why use it? What are its components? What are the differences between the 3? I have a demonstration for you. I'm going to be live in PBCS. Cross your fingers. Oracle cooperates with me. We're going to talk about what it takes to implement it. And I have questions and answers listed at the very bottom. But interrupt me. Don't wait to the end. I'm here for you. This is not for me. So what is it? Hyperion Planning came out 2000-2001. It is an on-premise version of a software. It does have some specialized modules, starter kits, and I'm going to get into the differences with additional slides. Planning Budgeting Cloud Service, PBCS, was Oracle's first cloud offering, came out several years ago. It is absolutely ready for prime time at this point. It is based on the Hyperion Planning on-premise software. EPBCS, Enterprise Planning Budgeting Cloud Service, came out a couple years ago. It is PBCS on steroids. It basically has additional modules. Let me ask, how many have you seen Hyperion Planning, whether it's on-premise, cloud? What are you doing here then? I mean, this is really basic 101. All right, so what is it? It's software for planning, budgeting, forecasting, just like the name says, but it can also be used for so many other things. Workforce planning, management reporting, operational planning. You can use it for driver-based planning, rolling forecasts. The list is really endless. It doesn't have to be used just for planning, budgeting, and forecasting. Now, the other thing that's really nice about this software is it can be customized to your company, to what you do, your industry, your products, what your management wants to do. It can be customized to exactly what you want. It's built for you. It is not a one-size-fits-all. Yes? Yes, so the question was, when I say customize, is that PBCS, EPBCS, and planning? It is all of them, yes. While they do have out-of-the-box modules, you don't have to use those. So it can be built specifically for you. Here's an example. All the different things that you may not include. It is up to your imagination. Do you want to include markets, products, customers? Do you want to include employees, or do you want to include employee groups? Are you a union shop, and therefore employee group planning makes more sense than named individual planning? All of these things may not include it. It is entirely up to you what you want to include in this product. So this is not a product like you buy QuickBooks off the shelf or Quicken off the shelf, and now you do your budgeting with this piece of software that you load on your laptop. No, this is a product that you can customize configure for you, for your users, for your user experience. So then the question is, why use it? You know, I'm sure many of you, if you are part of FP&A, if you're part of finance, a lot of companies are still doing their full annual plans, their forecasts in spreadsheets, in workbooks. Well, how many of you suffer from broken links, copy and paste, or you've changed your exchange rate and now you've got to go back to all your users and tell them to recalculate their numbers and send that all back again? What this is really good for is having one place, consistency, collaboration, and it allows your analysts to analyze. It allows your planners to plan. And what that means is that they're not spending over 50% of their time cobbling together their data, reconciling numbers, arguing about which number is right, because it's all in one place. The other thing that's really nice about this product, when you design it, when you configure it for your company, you can decide what you're going to have in that application. You can integrate your data into it. You can integrate data from your ERP, from your demand system, from HR, whatever different system. You know, if you've got things like market segment percentages that's housed somewhere, you can certainly integrate that into this product so that your planners are not having to go to all these systems to get that information. You can design your system so that the information is there for them for when they're putting together their AOP and their plan. So, question for you all. Who do you think of companies, the teams that are in the companies, what is the biggest user of planning, PBCS, EPBCS? Exactly, it is FP&A. They are the biggest users of it. You know, they're supporting the CFO, the CEO, the board of directors. They're coming up with long-range plans, forecasts, annual plans. They're figuring out best use of cash, all of that stuff. That's what FP&A does. But that doesn't mean they're the only users. Honestly, you can have applications built specifically for other teams in your company. You could do a plan. I've got a client. We built a system. All it is revenue forecasting. It uses number of customers. It uses pricing. It uses product strategies. It's a revenue forecasting tool. That's all it does. It does not do an operating plan. So you can build custom solutions in planning. Truly, the only limit is your imagination. So now the components. Application. So there are several components to planning. There is a relational database, which is where things like your metadata, your forms, your reports, your security, all of that stuff is housed in a relational database. It sits on top of Essbase. Essbase is an online analytical processing database. It's proprietary. As I said, it started with Arbor, then it was Hyperion, now it's owned by Oracle. But it is where your true data sits, where the calculations happen. And Essbase, I like to refer to it like a Rubik's Cube, because you can twist it and turn it and get your data all different ways. And if you design your application really well, it's going to be instantaneous for your users to see data, not just at the base level where they put their data in, but at any aggregation on at any point in that database. You can access planning from a browser, whether that browser is on your laptop, your desktop, your smartphone, your iPad. Any device that has a browser can access planning. But it also has an add-in for the Microsoft Office suite of products. So you can be in Excel and access PBCS, planning, EPBCS. So the forms that you build for your browser, you can also open that in Excel and work in Excel. Remember, if you're FP&A, finance people, they like Excel. They love Excel. So let them work in Excel if you want them to. Yes?
On your diagram that you had just a second ago on the left-hand side, are all those bullets in the relational database?
Yes, security, dashboards, charts. Ad hoc, I would say, is when you're in like Excel, and you can do ad hoc into the tool. So you're right, you got me there. Reports, data management, approval, task lists, navigation. Yes, everything else is in the relational database. All right, so how do you build one of these applications? It starts with plan types. So you've got your application, your users go in, but really behind the scenes are databases. Now, the example that I'm going to show you, these images are based on the example I'm going to show you. 3 plan types. Financial statements plan type, that's where we're going to have the income statement. A workforce plan type, that's where we're going to have named employees. And margin is where we're going to do revenue planning at greater detail. When we design a database, we design them with what are called dimensions. If any of you are familiar with HFM, dimensions, hierarchies are very common. It's the basis of HFM. It's also the basis of SBASE and therefore the basis of planning. There are some dimensions that are required, such as scenario, version, year, accounts, entity, I call it organization here, period. And then you can add additional dimensions as needed for your company. All of these dimensions are built in a hierarchical form. This year total, this period dimension is really simple to describe a hierarchy to you. You have 3 months, they roll up to a quarter. You have 2 quarters, they roll up to a half year. You have 2 half years, they roll up to year total. That is a hierarchy. And all the dimensions that we build are hierarchical in planning. So plan types. I have 3 in this application. Why? Well, the first one, as I said, is financial statements. It has the income statement. I could put the balance sheet in there. I could put cash flow planning in there. But it's the financial statements. And I use the required dimensions. By the way, you could have a currency dimension. I mean, you could have all different types of dimensions. But for this application, I'm showing you 6 required dimensions. So that means I can plan perhaps at cost center level. I can plan at whatever chart of accounts you want to use. You might have a high-level chart of accounts. You might use your ERP system for your chart of accounts, whatever it might be. And if you're planning at cost center, it's rolling up to your business units. It's rolling up to your management structure. It's rolling up to total company, all in one database. But now we add a workforce database. That workforce database is also going to have the same required dimensions, but we're going to add an employee dimension because we're going to include named employees. Next, we're going to have a margin database. We're going to include those first 6 dimensions without employees, and we're going to add products and customers because now we want to do revenue planning by product, by customer. Okay, so the user's in there putting in all kinds of data. Does the user have to go to 3 different databases to see data? No. If you design the application well, dynamically, when the user hits save on any form, let's say they're in workforce, they're going to be working in a cost center, lots of employees in that cost center. They hit save. It gets aggregated up to total cost center. Those numbers for the total cost center get transferred into the financial statement for their cost center. So you could build an application that calculates salaries exempt, calculates fringes, calculates all different items that are compensation costs. You do it by employee, it aggregates up, total numbers move over into the financial statement cube. The same thing will happen with margin. If they're doing revenue planning by customer and product, let's say, it will aggregate up to total product, total customer, move that data up into the financial statement cube. So now that, and I call it a cube, plan type, SBASE they call it a cube, planning they call it a plan type, it's the same thing. So it's going to go up into the financial statement cube. It'll aggregate up. You can see total company. All behind the scenes, the user does not need to run, depending on how your application's built, does not need to run any business rules or calculations. It can truly happen at the push of a button. Hierarchies. I know I'm going fast. I want to spend more time on the demo, but stop me if I'm going too fast, please. So hierarchies, if you're familiar with HFM, and I refer to it a lot because a lot of people have HFM and then they decide they're going to implement planning. HFM has your standard dimensions, but then HFM has custom dimensions, C1, 2, 3, 4, however many you want to add at this point. What's interesting about HFM, those custom dimensions can only add, additive, always additive. You can't subtract members within that, within those dimensions. But in planning, all of your dimensions can do addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. You can even ignore members in your hierarchies. So you can do, and it doesn't have to only be in the account dimension, you could do an alternate hierarchy perhaps for your organization where you take total company and you subtract out one section because you want a different roll-up perhaps. That can be done in any of the hierarchies in any of the dimensions within planning. You can put member formulas on members. So unlike HFM where you have this big huge rule and you do all calculations and formulas in your rule, in planning you can have business rules, but you can also put formulas right on the members themselves so that they calculate. So differences between, excuse me, between the three products. So as I told you, Hyperion planning was the first one. And then PBCS came out, and then EPBCS. Hyperion planning is on-premise. PBCS, EPBCS are cloud. I'm not going to cover every point on every slide because I would keep you here for 2-3 hours, and I don't want to do that. But these slides are uploaded to ODTUG. You can download them. There's a lot of information here. Please do so. So on-premise versus cloud. What does that mean? That means if you're on-premise, your IT department is maintaining those servers, possibly installing patches if you need a patch. You can decide if you want to install a patch. Do you really need it? You know, my philosophy is if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? I mean, it's going to continue to work. With PBCS and EPBCS, you're on Oracle servers. Oracle is maintaining them. Oracle is installing those patches no matter what. I remember, I want to say it was 6 months ago or so, they installed a patch on a Friday. I guess there were people working all weekend on this patch release, and I ended up getting emails, I guess, on Sunday evening. They were rolling that patch back because they found problems. If you're on your own server, you don't have to worry about that. You're going to get the releases on cloud. So if you're on premise, you can buy your licenses and you can create as many applications as you want. You can make your databases as big as you want. If you're on cloud, you're limited on your storage until you start paying more. And when you subscribe, you buy one subscription, which is one application on 2 environments. So plan types, databases. They all can have 3 BSO plan types. So real quick, BSO is block storage option. It is the original gold standard of SSpace. It's what came out. It's a proprietary database. It allows you to do formulas. It allows you to do the add, subtract, and all of that stuff. Well, a good 15 years ago, they were getting databases that were getting huge, not just gigabytes, but even terabytes. It was taking a long time to calculate. IBM happened to be one of Hyperion's customers, and they figured out how to get it out on Unix and stuff, but they also decided they were going to come up with another database engine, and that database engine is aggregate storage option. It's really for rack and stack. Yes, you can do formulas with it. Yes, you can do add and subtract and things like that. However, its additional dimensions are additive and they don't do subtraction unless you do special things to set them up as dynamic hierarchies and all of that stuff. So anyway, you get 3 BSO plan types. You can get an ASO plan type per BSO plus 1 for the application. So on premise, you can have 4 ASO plan types with your 3. You can also get 3 possible pre-built modules on premise that are basically starter kits. These starter kits come with outlines, charts of accounts. They come with pre-built forms, pre-built business rules. You can use it as is. If you want to customize it, personally, I think you're unraveling a plate of spaghetti to try to customize it. When you're on the cloud, PBCS, you're getting the 3 BSO plan types, 3 ASO plan types plus the reporting, so it's 3 plus 4, same thing. For EPBCS, you also have the possibility of starter kits. But these starter kits have all been rewritten. They are not the same starter kits on the cloud that they are on premise. So if you are on premise and you want to go to the cloud, you can certainly migrate what was a starter kit and migrate it to the cloud, but it will not be the starter kit. It would be as if you migrated a custom solution to the cloud. Security is very similar. You can do native groups, you can do Active Directory, you can do single sign-on. Several years ago, you couldn't do Active Directory and single sign-on with PBCS, EPBCS. You absolutely can. I have a client now, instead of including 12,000 people into the Active Directory and into PBCS, they did create a network group, and they put the people that need access into PBCS into that group so that when it's enabled for PBCS, we get to choose from that smaller group of people and give them access into the application. User interfaces, similar but not. So the original interface is called Workspace. It comes with shared services. It comes with FR reports on-premise. When PBCS first came out, they allowed you to have Workspace and what they called the simplified user interface. They have since gone to the simplified user interface. If you've been to the symposium, you know that that's what they're going to be using for 11.2. They're moving all the products to that. So even FCCS is using the simplified user interface. PBCS, EPBCS, a lot of the other cloud offerings are all using the simplified user interface. If you are an old subscriber to PBCS, EPBCS, you can use either. If you're a new subscriber, you have to use the simplified user interface. You also get financial reporting. And both products, whether you're on-premise or on the cloud, you can use SmartView, that add-in for the Microsoft Office products to access. So integration, on-premise, you can get FDM EE, or if you're in an older version, FDM. FDM EE on-premise has all the bells and whistles, allows you to do all the scripting. Data management on the cloud is what I refer to as FDM EE Lite. There is no scripting at all. It is you get a file, you import the file, you load the file. You can't do any kind of custom scripting at all. No import scripts, nothing like that. It is absolutely FDM EE Lite. In fact, we've had some clients implement PBCS and EPBCS, and our recommendation was stand up an on-premise server with FDM EE, and we do data integration on an on-premise server and go up to the cloud because we can do customized scripting and everything else. You don't have, on-premise you got Maxell, batch jobs. Cloud you have to use a utility called EPM Automate. You can schedule jobs on any server when you're on-premise. You can schedule EPM Automate jobs on your own server, but you also have a job scheduler actually in the graphical user interface, in the SUI, on the cloud.
I have a question.
Yes?
FDM on the cloud, so you can't do any mapping rules or anything?
You can do mapping. You can bring in a file, tell it what columns it's going to be. You can do the mapping. You can export and load it into your application. But if you have an import format where you want to concatenate columns or strip things, and yeah, correct. None of that.
Is it on their roadmap to add scripting to the FDM EE?
I have not heard of that, to add it to data management, and they refer to it as data management on the cloud instead of FDM EE. Not that I have heard. So it truly is FDM EE Lite. It is data management on the cloud. They all use Calculation Manager. On-premise, you also have access to the Essbase Administration Services tool so that you can work with the underlying Essbase cubes, plan types. On the cloud, you do not have EAS. And in fact, they have now added some of the functionality from EAS onto the cloud for administrators, but there are still some things that we cannot do. We don't have access to the servers. We can't change configuration settings. We can't see the Essbase logs. There are just some things you cannot do. They're getting better. They're opening up more things for us to see. But sometimes I feel like I got my hand tied behind my back when I'm trying to develop and fine-tune and performance-tune some applications. Features, as you've probably heard during the symposium, they aren't adding new features to on-premise. I'll give you an example. Smart Push is a feature that came out in PBCS 2 years ago. They told us about it at Kscope 16. I go up to Shankar, who's heading product development for planning. I said, that's all great. When are we going to get it on premise? It'll probably be 6 months, January, whatever. I email them in January. I don't see Smart Push coming out to on-premise. Well, it's now 2 years later, and it's still not on-premise. So I did hear from the symposium that they will release some features to on-premise with 11.2, but remember, all new development, all new features is happening in the cloud. It's not happening on-premise. That being said, we built Hyperion planning applications for years on-premise without these features. So do you need them per se? Maybe not. They could certainly impact and change your design, but you can do a whole lot without them. So Smart Push is when you're in a form, users putting data in the form, they hit save. Behind the scenes, we can, for that point of view of what they're looking at, move that data directly into one of the other plan types at the push of a button. You define what the area is and it moves it. You can also do it with a business rule. We've been doing it with a business rule forever. So it's a neat feature. You can set up all different ones. There are ways to work around it if you don't use it. All right, costs. On-premise, you pay per user. You can create as many applications as you want. They can be as big as you want per user. So you could pay for 10 users. Those 10 users, you could create 100 planning applications. Those 10 users can access all 100 applications. For the cloud, you are buying per application, per user, per month. And with that subscription, you get a test and a prod environment. Now, many of the salespeople out there, and hopefully there's nobody from Oracle in here, many of the salespeople out there will tell you, well, if you want 2 applications and you're buying 300 users and you want all 300 users to access both applications, you've got to buy 300 users for this application and 300 users for this application. You don't. You don't. And I was told that by product development, and I had a client that just went through this. You need to push them and say, hold on, let's talk to product development. There are names that you can contact in Oracle, and what they will end up doing is selling you that second subscription for a very small amount of money. I'm not going to quote the numbers, but you basically will pay your user licenses and then a small fee to have an additional subscription, or another subscription, or another subscription. You do not have to pay for your users multiple times. So let me get into this demonstration. Cross your fingers, this all works with Oracle. Okay, so this is actually PBCS. It's not Hyperion Planning, it's not EPBCS, PBCS, in the middle. When you come in, this is what you see. These are called cards and clusters. They look like your smartphone. So the first thing I'm going to show you is you can do dashboards. So dashboards are available with PBCS and EPBCS. They are not on the on-premise version. And you can see here that you've got all different types of charts that you can do. And if I switch this here and go refresh, you can also bring in quads with data. You can set these up. You could have 1 chart, 2 charts, 3, 4, however you want to set them up. I just wanted to show you some examples of what's out there. So then, if we go back, the other thing that comes with the cloud version is this Academy. This is a place where you can actually run videos. Your users can get into that. They can see videos on how to use the product, but it also takes users into documentation, very generic user documentation, but it's out there. Let me go back to home. All right, so navigation. As I said, these are clusters and cards. You can actually customize the view that your user sees when they come into the application. This is a standard admin view. But I can go in here, and I've created a couple other navigation flows. So if I go into navigation flows, and it's thinking, come on, wake up. Come on, Oracle, there we go. So I created a couple of different navigation flows. And if I go into, let's say, this planner one, you can see that I created some additional cards and clusters. So a cluster contains a bunch of cards. A card just has one item selected. So you'll see here I have cycle 1, cycle 2, cycle 3. What the heck is that? Planning cycles. So think about this. Your company is probably working on a forecast right now. And if it was August and you're on a January to December plan, you're working on a forecast in August, but you're probably also starting your budget, your annual budget, your AOP. You might also be working on an LRP or something, or a strategic plan. So your system has to be able to handle all these different cycles at once. The way Finit builds these is we call them planning cycles. And so we can set up cycle 1, and we might point cycle 1 to the AOP. And cycle 2, we might point to the current forecast. And cycle 3 might be pointed to your long-range plan. And we can control what data users would be inputting during those cycles and what data they will see for referential data during those cycles. So here with cycle 1, I set up a navigation flow for a planner so that they can get into workforce, into their financial statements, and I'm going to demonstrate this. But if I do this and I activate my planner one, and I go to home, I'll reload my navigation flow, and now I see my cycles 1, 2, 3. But maybe I don't want people to see everything. So I'm going to go back into my tools, back to my navigation flows, and I'm going to do a true planner view. I go over here, I reload my navigation flow. And the other thing that's really nice about this, the other thing that's really nice about this is I can adjust my navigation flow. I can hide cycle 3 and hide cycle 2 if I want at any point in time. So I've limited now what is out there. All right, so let's go into cycle 1. I'm looking at my cheat sheet to make sure I show you everything I want to show you. So if I go into workforce, hold on, where am I? Go back here. Okay, so if I go into workforce, which is where I'm in, I have actually set up a bunch of different forms for workforce. Existing staff, open positions. This is a custom workforce solution. This is not the out-of-the-box solution. This demo is modeled after things we've built for different clients. So the gray stuff comes from our HR department. It's preloaded. Users can't change that. But what they can do is start changing elements that we allow them to change. This example was actually built for, part of this was built for a client that is a global client. And what they found were people out in Asia, people in Europe. When they were doing their spreads, they were doing it based on payroll files, and therefore they take an annual salary and they divide it by 12 and they spread it to the months evenly. But in the US, they were doing their spreads based on pay periods, because pay periods were every 2 weeks. So in order to accommodate everybody, we actually built the system to allow even spreads. We allowed them to spread based on weekdays or fiscal days. So by selecting that, you notice that I just changed an element. It turned yellow. I do save. What it's doing right now is it's calculating the compensation for each individual by month based on drivers that we have in the system. And I'll show you the drivers. Notice that the user did not have to click a business rule. It just did it. So these drivers, for this example, happen to be things like merit increases. This merit increase happens to be 3% starting in April. They ended up doing just a primary fringe. They didn't break it out by FICA and by unemployment comp, and they did one big fringe. They also have a fringe rate for commissions and a fringe rate for overhead. So this is all in the system. These can be updated by one global person, but they also have it set up so like a country representative can update for their entire country because the fringe rates are different in each country. So the calculations happen based on these drivers. Now let's go into open positions. I've typed some in over here, but these are all based on, these are called smart lists. So we have built into this application the possible employee classes that they can choose from. We also built in drop-downs so that we don't have to worry about somebody misspelling something. When does this position start? January through December. And if they don't select an end date, we assume it goes through December, but they don't have to put December in there. We have them put in a base amount. We tell us what is that pay period cycle. So are you giving us a a yearly amount, an hourly amount, every 2 weeks? What is the cycle that you're giving us? The orange ones are a reminder that nothing will calculate unless they populate those orange columns. If they miss one of them, these open positions won't calculate. So I'm going to quickly go in here. I'll just pick weekdays for each of these, and then we'll calculate real quick. And the other thing to remember is I can open these forms in Excel and do this exact same thing in Excel. I'm hitting save. I get my spinny wheel. Things are happening behind the scenes. And actually what's happening is their data is being calculated by employee in the workforce plan type. For this cost center, all that data is being aggregated. That data is being sent over to the P&L in the financial statement cube. That cube is being aggregated. Total organization is being calculated immediately when the user hits save. So if you're part of FP&A, global FP&A, you got your users in there, people are making changes, you can go to total company and see where you are at any point in time because you're live in the system. But remember, this is all based on how you design it and how you build it. All right, so we go into compensation data. This now shows me what's been calculated based on the class, based on start date, based on all those different things that I selected. All right, so I can go and look at Mr. Mad Hatter, and I can look at the calculations that happened for him. I can see that his base pay is here based on the amount that came from HR. And I can see his merit increase based on the drivers. Remember I said there was a 3% merit increase starting in April. That's there. My primary fringe has been calculated, and that primary fringe was calculated on total pay. It's visible to the users to see what was happening. Any questions so far? All right. So now let's go over, and I am in 17199. Let's go over to the financial statement. We're going to go over here where OPEX is. I am in 17199. So see this salaries exempt calc? That salaries exempt calc is the same number that we saw in the workforce cube for the year, 125,619. If I go back over here and show you that, 125,619. So when I hit save, it went over right into the financial statement. So now the other thing that they can do is they can adjust numbers. What they wanted was, let's plan workforce, but let's give our planners the ability to also tweak numbers if they want right in their cost center chart of accounts. That doesn't mean you have to build it that way, but this is what this client wanted. So now I'm going to show you how these forms work. These forms are actually kind of cool. I'll go down here. And we'll slide over just a little bit, because then you can see the year total. Right here. Okay, so I can put in a number in a month. You'll see that naturally quarter 3 gets populated, half year 2 gets populated, year total gets populated. Well, I can put in several different numbers, and that will all update. You notice that quarter 3, half year, all that updates. But if I'm a planner and I don't want to plan by month, I can also put in a number in the quarter, and it's going to spread. Or I can put in a number in the half year, and it's going to spread to all the months of that half year. Or I can even plan at year total. Maybe I don't want to put in months. I can just put in that number. But the other thing that's really nice about this is you can do certain things. Like maybe, oh, I didn't want 1,500. I want to actually increase that by 10%. I can go multiply 1.1, and it just updated the number for me right in the cell. This is planning forms. This is how planning forms work. The other thing that's really nice about this is, let's say I don't spread everything by a 4-4-4-5 or a 5-4-4, but there are certain accounts that I do want to spread. So I didn't turn it on for the whole application because I don't want things to spread that way. But maybe for this car expenses, taxes, I want to spread it, let's say 5-4-4. I can put in here 5, 4, 4. And then I say, oh, but my car expense is $1,000. I put 1,000 in here now. It's going to spread that 1,000 based on what was in those cells. So it just now spread that $1,000 based on 5, 4, 4. Okay, so we're going to hit save. It's now going to calculate.
So how does, I'm sorry, how does it know that that wasn't a text and an operator? Is it because you put it in the quarter that it would go back into?
So all of those cells are numeric cells. If it was a text, like with a drop down or something, it would behave differently. So if I put, so for example, if I type in an A here and do letters, it won't let me even hit enter. It won't take it. It has to be a numeric.
Okay, so why didn't it stick with the 544?
Oh, because I typed over the full quarter then.
Okay.
So I had put 544 into the 3 months, which gave me 13 in the quarter. I then changed the 13 to 1,000 or whatever number I did. So it now says you want 1,000 in the quarter, spread it based on the proportion of what was already in the monthly cells. So because I had 544, it takes the 1,000 and spreads it based on that proportion.
So you didn't have to go into the different kind of spread and pick the stuff.
Correct.
I didn't even know.
Yeah, there's a lot here. Many people, if you are working with planning, doesn't know that it can be done. But a lot of it is literally out of the box, whether it's on-premise or cloud, what you can do with forms. All right, so I did a save. And when I did a save, and I go back down to that section, where was I? Somewhere here. Here. So the cells all turned white when I hit save. Now, what's interesting is I can change what part of the organization. So I'm in this cost center. Well, why don't I just look at total organization? I don't think I have these accounts populated here. I go save, and I scroll down. So total organization now there are all these items, mileage, all this stuff. Those are the numbers you just saw me enter. Total aggregated organization. Entered at a cost center, rolled up to a business unit, rolled up to total company at the click of a button. The other thing that's really nice about this, you start a planning cycle, and you start with certain exchange rates. And then you get a month into your planning cycle, your last actual period has different rates. If you're working with workbooks, you're going to email your users. You're going to say, here are your new rates, recalculate, send us your new numbers. You don't have to do this anymore when you're in an application like this. Your admin can go in, change rates, hit a business rule, and it recalculates everything for you right at once. So if I look at my review, and let me go in here. I got to select what I'm looking at. So this one will be derive. And I can apply this. So now I'm looking at functional currency. They decided to call it functional currency. Many times we call it local currency, whatever the case may be. So we're looking at functional currency. And we'll just look at one number here. Let's say this 564. When I was in that one cost center, I know it was a USA cost center. But now I can change currency, and instead of showing you USD, let's look at euro. We click euro. My 564 better change, or you guys are going to say, I don't know what I'm talking about. And it did. So now I'm looking at the whole database calculated in euro. It did it all when I hit save. All of that can be designed that way. The other thing that we do a lot is I told you about planning cycles. So this is cycle 1. They're working on plan, working fiscal year 19. The administrator, FP&A Global, decided that this was going to be the data that they wanted to show on a form. Well, the last thing we want to do is have to go into every single form and edit that when we decide we want to show different data. So when we do this, we build based on substitution variables. So we can go in and change a substitution variable and change all our forms at once. Come on, Oracle, there we go. So I'm on cycle 1. I have actual fiscal year 17. So I'm going to just change this guy. The way these forms are set up are to suppress columns if there is no data. So I'm going to change my fiscal year 17 to fiscal year 25 because I know I have no data in there. I go OK. I go back to my cycle 1, back to my review, and that column disappeared. It disappeared from all my forms at once. So the administrator can make changes like that. I remember several years ago we were helping a client. They had an application and we were doing some redesign for them and stuff. And I said, so when you go from one planning cycle to another, how long does that take? Oh, let me think about that. Well, yeah, at least 4 weeks. And I went, what? Why? Well, we go into every form, we adjust it, we go into every business rule, we adjust it, we then have to test everything. All the business rules, all the forms are built using those substitution variables. So I can go from one planning cycle to another, as you saw, that quickly. Yes?
So when you update your substitution variables, you don't need to refresh the database?
No. So the only time you have to refresh the database with substitution variables is if you use that substitution variable in a formula on a member. Otherwise, you do not have to. All right, so the other thing I wanted to show you is you can do rolling forecasts, and you can do them very easily. So the first form you saw with the months showed the quarters, months, quarters, half year, year total. This form actually shows the 12 months, and then it shows the next year. So if I go back to and open, let's go to 1201, because I just know there's data there. If I go to a cost center, I can now put in data. I guess I don't have data there. Let me go to a different one. Oh, that's because I didn't do workforce data. Okay, let's go here. And so this is a hierarchy. You notice I'm clicking, going down the hierarchy. Let me select this one, go here, go here. Okay, so now instead of seeing the quarters, the half years, the year total, we've got the 12 months, and then we've got the next months. Maybe we're really in a forecast. Maybe we're doing the 2 plus 10. If we were doing the 2 plus 10, January and February would be grayed out. Users wouldn't be allowed to change those because they would be actual data. And it would say actual here. But now maybe we're going to start doing an 18-month rolling forecast. Well, users could very easily take, let's say, salaries total. We'll edit this and copy it. And we're going to stick it in here. We're going to edit it and paste it. And I'm going to say, well, that was my last month. That was my total salaries. I'm doing a, let's see, I got to do 2 plus another 2, 4, 6, because I said that January and February were locked. Hold on, come on. I want to show you what this can do, and it's not cooperating. There we go. I can just drag it and spread it. And now when I hit save, it's not only calculating the first year, it's also calculating the second year. And I can set this up so that September through December of the next year is grayed out because I don't want 4 more months, I want 18 months. All of that can be done. It can all be controlled through substitution variables. And let's see, time. I don't have a lot. Let me go back to my slides. Yes?
So we use EPBCS, we use procurement. Now we have defined all the security rules, which cost center will do the manager and all that over there. So now can we leverage those setups over here, or do we have to define roles and security?
You have to define them separately. They're 2 separate environments. However, you could end up using the same names. You could, if you've got the same people provisioned, you can upload those groups. But now what you're going to have to do is assign those groups into each dimension. So if you've set up a group that's allowed to read the entire organization, you assign that to entire organization, and your users are part of that group. But let's say you've got some users that can write to a certain business unit. you would assign that group to have write access to that business unit and down. But no, you can't cross. However, if you are on premise using Hyperion planning, you can absolutely share groups between your products. All right, so implementing it. How long does it really take? Any ideas? How long does it take to implement one of these solutions? Any other guesses? 6 months? I'm sorry? I'm sorry, I got the... Well, yeah. I'm going to tell you it depends. And it depends on a lot of things. So you're building a house. Well, what does the new homeowner want? Well, you've got to do discovery, requirements, figure out what it is. Do they want a 3-bedroom house, 3-car garage? Do they want a 1-bedroom house, no garage? All of that you have to figure out through discovery and requirements. That takes time. Is FP&A, is corporate, or whoever you're building this for, is there going to be one central group that's going to define what this application looks like? Or are you going to go back to the business units and find out what each business unit does, trying to build a solution that satisfies everyone? That takes time. When you do the design, how complex? Are you going to have 1 plan type? Are you going to have 3 plan types? Are you going to do workforce planning by individual? Are you going to have to figure out what the data integration is from a whole bunch of different sources? That all takes time. The more you do ahead of time, the less it's going to cost you. Then you get into build. Okay, you're building your house. You've got this all on a blueprint. You're standing there with the builder, and you're looking at this thing and going, that's not the way it was supposed to look. And now they're going to have to rip that out and do it differently. Well, that happens during build all the time. While you document, you put this all down, you have to tweak it and get it right. So build can take a while. And the more complex, are you putting in 3 toilets or are you putting in 1 toilet? Are you putting light switches on every single doorway or are you not? That all takes time. Same thing for this application. Data integration, as I said, are you bringing data in from your ERPs, from a demand system, from HR, from other sources? That takes time to script that and get that there. Then you get into testing, UAT, parallels. You want to make sure this all works. The last thing you want is that homeowner to walk in and the toilet backs up the first day they use it. Training, write those materials so those users can truly be self-sufficient. You don't want your admins to be getting phone call after phone call after phone call because you didn't train them properly to get in there. And then deploy. There's going to be knowledge transfer that goes on. You might say go live is September 1st, but go live probably spreads over a few weeks as you get people in there, right? So 5-6 months, you said? Our shortest was about 5-6 months. It was a true application. That was not an application where users are entering their actual numbers or where there's no data integration at all. It is a true soup to nuts application. Yes?
Is that on-premise, PBCS, EPBCS?
Both. I'd say our average is in that probably 6 to 9 months to do a true application. Yes?
All the modules?
No, so we very rarely use the out-of-the-box modules. To customize them, to configure them for your needs takes a lot more work than very often building a custom solution. And the modules we have found over the years have a lot in them that our customers aren't using. So our longest took over a year, not 2, but more than a year. We have also done phased implementations. So maybe we'll implement planning and we'll do the financial statements and we'll know that we're going to do workforce as phase 2. Or we know that we're going to enhance our revenue planning for phase 2. You don't have to do a Big Bang Theory when you implement one of these. So if you're going to do it right. I've been taught that since I was a toddler. If you're not going to do it right, why waste the money and the time? Now, can it be done in a few weeks, a couple of months? I'm sure there are a lot of partners out there telling you that. But from what I've heard, if you implement a solution in 2 months, you're getting their chart of accounts, you're getting their forms, you're getting their business rules. Your users are probably typing in their actual data, typing in their other data. There is no data integration. That's what I'm hearing. That's not what Finit delivers. So if you can get something in 6 weeks, 8 weeks, you're probably not getting it built for you. You're not getting it built for your requirements. Honestly, one size does not fit all. Every business is different. Every industry is different. Every business in that industry does FP&A differently. Remember, budgeting truly is guessing, and everybody has different ways to guess. So, in summary, oh, I'm good, okay. In summary, make sure you weigh all the options. Look at everything before you make a decision. Look at the differences between the products. Look at the differences between your implementation partners. Talk to multiple implementation partners because you're going to hear different things from different people. You have to decide, do you want to fit into somebody else's box or do you want a solution built for you? If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So if they tell you they can do this in 8 weeks, there's probably going to be a lot of change orders to get it to the point where you want it. Just saying. Do a lot of the work ahead of time. If you guys do all your discovery requirements, you figure out what it is you need, you can shorten that cycle and you can shorten that cost. The other thing is make sure you have a tiebreaker. You need somebody that's going to make the final decision. If you've got a team of 10 people that are dictating how this is going to look, and you're split 5-5, what do? There has to be one person that will make the final decision. Make sure you have that on your project. The other thing I tell my clients all the time, build for the 80%, not the 20%. You have 10 business units. 8 of them do everything very similar. Build it for them. You've got 2 other business units. They both do something completely different. If you build it for them, you're impacting the other 80%. You're adding more complexity that you don't need. Maybe what you really need to do for a situation like that is build their own solution that could feed into your primary solution. There are all different ways to handle that, but build your solution for the 80%. Less is more. So I've had clients that say, oh, I want to plan down to the SKU. Tens of thousands. I'm going, are you kidding me? You're going to open up forms and you're going to start putting in numbers in 10,000 rows? Are you crazy? How does that really make your plan any more accurate? It usually doesn't. So think about what it is that you're building and what your end result will be and what level of accuracy you really need. Keep the thing simple. Keep it simple for your users so it's easy to navigate. Keep it simple for your administrators so that you can go from one planning cycle to the next in a matter of a few minutes rather than four weeks. Last but not least, remember we're in class 101, reading list, homework. These are on the slides. Be sure to download them. There's a lot of information out there. You can go to Oracle for a lot of their documentation. ODTUG has a lot of stuff, past recordings. Google, go to partner websites. Finit does webinars all the time. You can certainly watch those. This is another slide just talking about FP&A that I stuck in there. And questions?